everyone, I'm John Aldefer, and as you can see, talking about Judge Brand. So, a little bit about me. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I've been level 3 for almost 15 years now. I've been judging for 20-ish years. Currently am Grand Prix head judge. I've done the Burgundy occasionally. Used to be regional coordinator for the Northeast, so I have a blue shirt as well. I currently work as an event specialist for CFB events, so you see me at a lot of the Magic Fests. In fact, as I hear it, John Aldefer lives in the GP kit. And if we're talking about branding, we might as well, go with what you know, and accept it. So, yeah, there are at least a few shots of me conveniently placed inside the GP kits. So, question is, really, what does that mean? That's one of those. At every event I go to, I probably hear it a few times in each weekend. A little bit of background, a little bit of history. Currently, if you count Grand Prix and Pro Tours, I'm somewhere north of 250 of them, which is a lot. The way I got there was, early on, I was just kind of the usual grinder, and so many judges try and be. And we lived in a slightly different world, but the way that you got there was I figured out what I wanted to do with in this program. I figured out what my goal was. I figured out that I really loved the feel, the experience of the big events, and had to kind of figure out my way into that world. And the way I did it isn't the world we live in anymore. So I could go through and I could spend the next hour detailing the steps I took. It would be interesting background for people, but it wouldn't necessarily illuminate what it needs to right now. So in order to talk about that, I'm going to take a little bit of a sideline and want to talk about kind of an extension of what Eric has been talking about. Who here actually has done staffing for events? Hands up. All right, so a decent portion. There are those of you who haven't. I'm going to play around a little bit here. We're going to look at an old event. This is Grand Prix Auckland from 2012. So, long ago, tiny event, not that many judges, but this is what you see if you go in and you look at the staff list of applications for an event. You have a list here of all the names, all levels, relevant information, what people have applied for, and here's where you can select them for what they applied for, what type of sponsorship you want to give them, and what position you want to give them. When you look at this, there isn't much. There isn't any information as far as things like the cover letter. There isn't anything like, it doesn't tell you anything except for the bare bones facts. What you see here is a horrible, horrible photo, and I apologize for that. But you notice on the far left side, the first thing that you're going to be faced with are comments about anybody else who can look in here, anybody who has access to these files. So the admins on your event, regional coordinators, high-level judges can go in and make comments about your application. And that's the first thing on the left. That's the first thing you're going to notice when you see that. Now over here on the right, you do have your cover letter and the questions that were set up in that application. So this is much more information. But, those comments from people commenting about you, first thing that when you're staffing, you're going to be confronted with. So as a judge who is applying for things, a thing to remember is those comments, those things that your peers are telling about you, are going to be one of the first things that come up. And we're going to extrude this just a little bit more. If we're talking a higher level of, if we're talking large scale events along the lines of Magic Fest, along the lines of Star City, one of the things you can do is, if you scroll to the bottom of any particular event, there's a CSV file that you can download. And that has all the information that you're going to need in an even more compact form. That's what it looks like. And if you look at this, we can see that the questions and the cover letter and everything are here. But they are so compact and so dense that when you are viewing the applications for, a large number of applicants, things kind of tend to get lost occasionally. And it's unfortunate, and I don't want to say that cover letters are not important, because they're very important. As a staff manager for these events, I go through, and even if there are 100 applicants for a position, I go through and read those. I read through those, make sure that I've read them all, so I am familiar with them. However, it's a lot of information to process, it's a lot of things to be aware of. Therefore, we're going to talk about other things you can do that will keep you at the forefront, that will keep you in the mind of those who are trying to staff you. Reputation. It's a critical thing. It's something that you develop long over many different ways. A lot of it is directly reflective of what you do at events. The issue, of course, is at any particular event, the crew that you're working with is diverse and changing. Having a consistent presentation, having things that you are known for is very, very important. In the particular case of me setting up house in the GP kit, when I started this, I had the same struggle as everyone trying to get onto these events. I'd read out to tournament organizers, I'd submit, and would occasionally get on there, would occasionally not. When I did, I made sure to talk to everybody I could about my goals. I made sure to demonstrate my skills. I put in extra time making sure that I gained the information to forward my particular goal. And it's very important going into this knowing what your goal is. There are some here who are the big event writers. There are those of you who I see at the big events all the time. But that's only one small aspect of the judge program. And truthfully, knowing if that's for you or not is huge. There is such a giant community here. The community builders are just as important. The problem that we run into for a lot of these, the reputations, and as a program, it is something that we have not been great at messaging over the years. And in fact, for a while, it was something that we were actively confusing. Large event attendance was often treated as a reward for other things. And therefore, if you were an amazing community builder and you had all sorts of judges that you were developing and your area was flourishing, that was a way to get onto a very large tournament where we expected a completely different set of skills and where many judges were labeled as not what we were looking for. And fortunately, we've moved away from that era. And so one of the big things when you are determining the reputation that you want to build, understand what you're going for. Not all of judging is large tournaments, and it is not the end-all be-all. Once you know what you're good at, once you know what you enjoy, you can then talk to other people. You can build this reputation. An important thing to be aware of in these situations is who you should be talking to, who you need to know. I'm going to talk mostly about large tournaments because, well, that's my wheelhouse. That's what I know. For the purposes of large tournaments, let's start off with Magic Fest. You get on Magic Fest. There a large event, we accept a good number of judges. If you are looking to continue on that path, if you want to continue with those, what do you need to do? Who do you need to impress? The people who are going to help you in this particular situation the most are your team leads, the people managing the stages, and a few people that you're not going to see at these events, or not necessarily the roles that they are. For CFB events, the current staffing manager is level 3 judge out of Panama by the name of Carlos Ho. Carlos is the one who coordinates all of our staffing efforts. And the process for this is when we close a staffing list, we have the entire file, similar to the one I showed you, only significantly longer, where we give a chance for all of our managers to comment. And truthfully, most judges that we work with don't get comments. Yeah, it's when you're working with hundreds of individuals over multiple weekends, most judges are doing their jobs and they're doing quite well at it, but that doesn't stand out. If you want to start building a reputation, you need to start standing out. And that's tough. That's really tough nowadays. It's presented in opportunities at these events where you work with other judges. It requires proactivity. The people you are working with, if you are looking for a goal, feedback is tough to get. We love feedback in the program. We love it as a concept. It is the grease on which this program runs. Unfortunately, it's really, really tough to do. It's emotionally draining. It's especially tough if you don't know what to be giving feedback on. But if you come to an event and you say, this is my goal, this is my plan, this is what I'm working on, and you tell this not only to your teammates, but also to your superiors, to their superiors, to anyone who will listen, the scatterbomb approach is going to get you noticed. Now, will it get you a ton of feedback? Pragmatically, I'm going to say no, unfortunately.
But you're on the radar.
But you're on the radar. Talking about making sure that people are aware of what you're trying to do and actively seeking feedback. Now, this has the two-pronged effect of potentially getting you feedback about what you're trying to achieve, which either way, whether it's good feedback, whether it's constructive feedback, should help to get you to your place, but also this broadcasts to the world that this is what you're trying. Anything and everything that you can do to associate your name or yourself with your goal helps to forward that. And now, when you're doing this, you need to make sure that you have a plan and you are seizing the opportunities that are presented to you. If you are trying to present yourself as a solid policy judge that is actively trying to do that and is seeking out interesting situations to discuss, you need to make sure that you are staying current with policy, that you are well grounded in that you have done your studying, coming to an event and saying, I'm the policy wonk, I want to know all your policy questions, and then proceeding to show everyone that you really don't necessarily have a great understanding of this thing that you're passionate about. Well, hopefully it'll get you that constructive feedback. But it's also going to build your reputation, just not in the way that you are hoping to do so. That obviously is something that you can be doing when you are on events. There's so much time when you're not on events, and when you're trying to get on events. And one of the reasons why I showed you initially some of those screens from the back end of events is there's not a lot of a way in that the process that we've set up through apps to stand out, to build yourself up. So if you are looking to build a reputation, if you're looking to try and push yourself forward, there are other approaches that you can take. Knowing other judges, having your network in place is very, very important for this. If you're trying to get staffed, you're trying to jump into these events, obviously, craft your cover letter well. However, if you are really passionate about something, reach out to your head judge with an email. Reach out to the organizer. In the case of CFP events, reach out to Carlos Ho. His email is judge@cfbevents.com. Really easy to remember. And explain what you're going for. Explain why you need this. What you're trying to accomplish. Reach out to Ricky at Star City Games. There are these critical touch points, and an email or having another judge that you know who's associated with the event reach out for that. These type of things are just that little bit more that makes you stand out, and that's ultimately what you're trying to do. Is you are trying to stand out from this already exceptional crowd of individuals who are trying to get themselves staffed or trying to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. That's one of the biggest challenges that we face as judges. Is our peers are amazing. It's not getting onto something is not a reflection negatively on you necessarily. It's just we have an embarrassment of riches. So anything you can do to make yourself stand out, let me step that back. Because anything you can do to make yourself stand out, not necessarily where you want to be. A few years ago, we were a little more stringent about things like our dress code. And, we had the black shirts, we had the black slacks, we had black shoes. Well, kind of black shoes. And we had judges who were convinced that they were going to stand out, they were going to become the judge who wears a ball cap, or the judge who always is in a tie. And they stood out. It was a known thing. Mostly it was a known thing that they were pushing against the code for no real discernible reason other than they're passionate about this aesthetic issue. Nowadays, obviously, we've relaxed that a little bit and people are a little more free to express themselves, and I think we're in a better place because of it. But at the time, the hill they chose to die on really, they chose to die. That is not the type of reputation that you want to be establishing for yourself. You want to be pushing your skills. You want to be pushing what makes you qualified as a judge, as a staff person. And part of that is self-analysis. Like I said, understand what you are good at, understand what you are passionate about, and enhance that. Do what you can to call that out. Now, something that I had mentioned earlier as well is sometimes your reputation is not what you want it to be. Sometimes you, through a series of unfortunate actions or choices, end up with a reputation that is actively keeping you from what you want. And once again, this is where your community is valuable, this is where your connections are valuable, because one of the worst things that you can have is a reputation for a negative trait that you're not aware of. And so, it gets to be a challenging thing in today's world, because these reputations, if you are unaware of them, finding out about them and finding out how to fix them can be challenging. The major tournament organizers are dealing with so many people and are honestly still fairly tight, fairly small operations. They don't necessarily have time to provide the quality feedback that, we all really want. So, that top tier, you can try. And occasionally you might get a result, but That is not something that, truthfully, you can count on. This is where the judges that you work with day to day, the judges that you interact with at these large events, having discussions, asking for frank information. Just finding out, if you feel there's an issue, laying it out on the line with them, saying, hey, what do you know about me? What is my reputation? Once you're aware of a situation, once you're aware of what that perception is, fixing it. One of the biggest things that you can do once you're aware of something is, in these applications, in these emails that you might be sending, acknowledge what you've heard. Acknowledge what is believed to be an issue. Have a plan for how you are going to work to improve upon this situation. When we're looking through these staffing documents, when we're looking through these applications, those comments from the management will often play into those reputations. However, when a comment is, well, this judge tends to find any opportunity to get off their feet and will disappear into a back room at any opportunity. If that's the reputation, and the judge in their comments mentions to us, I know that I have had a problem with this, I am actively working to improve on this, I have seen that this is something that I need to fix, this is what I am doing to try and correct this, that means a lot. That is something that is going to be considered by most organizers that I've worked with, at least on the large scale. Now, if we step back and we go to a lower scale, if we go to a local scale, we have the advantage of no longer being nearly so impersonal. Reputations at a local scale are critical and are a different challenge to manage, because most of that is going to be face-to-face. If you're working with multiple shops and there is, let's say, an issue at one of the shops, you know the people who you need to talk to. You can have a direct conversation about this. It's not nearly so impersonal. But once again, oh, yes.
Especially on the local level, the grapevine is a much bigger challenge on the much larger scale, because on the larger scale, attention's diverted to so many different people. And the local level, there's not many, and so one instant you may have, like if you get in a small verbal, not even argument, but just verbal disagreement with someone, next week could be, oh, y'all had a knockdown, drag out verbal battle in the middle of the store.
True. And at the local level, as with anything else, you have to take it person by person. The grapevine, any story, any drama will spread like wildfire. Truthfully, so will good reputations. If you go and you are just knocking out an event, if you had a MCQ that you were a team lead at, and you impressed the people working under you and your head judge, at a local level, that story is going to travel pretty quickly as well. But you need to be careful just to make sure that you are cultivating the image that you like. Be aware of what people are saying, being aware of what is happening. It's unfortunately something that we constantly have to be aware of if we are looking to continue working at any level, is what is thought of us. On a personal level, there was a series of about 5 years where I was actively blocked from a whole series of tournaments. Wasn't aware why. Wasn't even aware it was happening for a while. And didn't find out until it actually had been resolved for me later that this was a situation that was occurring. In my case, patience and just dogged determination ended up passing through. And truthfully, that's something that sometimes you need to be able and willing to do. Is sometimes the goal you have is not going to be attainable at the time that you're striving for it. There are many, many opportunities in the program. The long shot is great to have, but there's wonderful opportunities at all levels, starting at a more attainable goal and absolutely embracing it and rocking it is going to help that reputation. That's going to build your credibility and your viability for that next level. So basically, the big thing that you need to be searching for here is awareness. You need to be knowing what's going on with yourself. You need to be aware of your strengths. You need to be aware of how you've been doing. You need to be in the community. You need to be reaching out, having connections, having people who are willing to help you, whether it's through feedback, whether it's through advocation. These are all very important things. You need to be willing to work on yourself. You need to be willing to improve. You need to be willing to take any and all feedback that does come back to you and actively work to become the better judge for whatever you're trying for. Question?
I have a couple points to bring out. If you're to that point of your thing, trying to wrap things up and deal with some things, first thing I'll deal with is you started on your things and everything else. Guys, I staffed things. These guys are there. First impression as you saw when we went down there is a picture. Have a professional looking picture. I recently threw Baldy under the bus. I'll throw him there. He knows that. We had the discussion. Personal, face to face, because he had changed his photo when I asked him about it to a kind of goofy looking scenario, and his reason back to me, you want to tell him the reason?
I'm kind of a goofy individual, to be fair.
No.
I don't remember the reason I gave
The
you.
reason you gave me or told me is because you were being a team leader in a new environment, and you didn't want to be overbearing to the group of new people that he was going to be
I didn't
working
want
with.
to look like what I typically present. I typically present, do not come near me because reasons.
Anyway, I'll deal with it. Normally his photo was much more professional looking. We had one of our RCs in the past that was diving below, holding the sign, looking goofy, and dealing with things. A different region. It's still there. There's the guy holding the jar of peanut butter. These are things that don't impress me as a TO. They get their message across to them and branding them, but they're not branding it. To me, they're not branding themselves as a serious judge. Present yourself as a professional.
Absolutely, and that's one of those, getting back to you are absolutely creating an image for yourself, but is it
First thing is
actually something that is forwarding your goals or actually setting you aside?
And the next thing I was going to bring up and point out is the new judges. Again, you're not talking to new judges here, you're dealing with stuff there, but other people to look at. Do you know your area captain? Do you know your RC? Do they know you? If the answer to both of those isn't yes, then you're not branding yourself right, because those are people that are good. Because the RC is going to go to the area captain if he doesn't know you. The area captain is going to give him feedback, say, I haven't seen him work, don't know him, I've never had interactions with him, he doesn't show up to local meetings, whatever. Things like that. Just use this chain to work your way up to that, because you guys, if you have some new applicant from outside the pond, where's your first step? The RC. And if the RC don't know you, what's his next step? The area captain. To feed it back up.
Yep, and as we saw in Eric's scenario, there were a number of those applications where I don't know anything about this judge is a little damning in those type of applications, because they may be amazing, but you don't have anybody propping you up. If I come in and say, I am the best deck checks league you're ever going to see, and the response from both the TO and the regional coordinator are, who? It's a little bit tough to prop that one up.
So, just an observation, and actually from the weekend and some shows, because I don't come out to a lot of large events, time-wise. I try to communicate forward. That's largely unsuccessful. And then to get a person, like there are the Aldefers, there's all these key people that, as you say, like, we need to be on your radar. you're very busy at these events, if you could get an XO to mitigate your time and to free you up for people to go, like, Vegas last year, you overruled me, and I'm still trying to figure out that piece of policy. Like, I want to be good at how to order sequencing, and I'm still wrestling, and I talk to people, and I'm trying to get a better understanding, because I want to be able to call that correctly. And so I always appreciate when I can get 2 to 5 minutes time with a senior judge, to get that, because it helps me grow.
Oh, yeah.
But when, one of the things is you're saying, it's like, hey, get out there, communicate. You guys are super busy, and I don't want to be a screaming Mimi when I'm at the event to go, hey, I sent you an email, come at me, like, what's going on?
Right.
And so I think if you have an XO or something like that to help with that sort of stuff. And again, that's money, that's staffing, I understand, just observation.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it is, unfortunately, with the craziness that these events can be, finding that FaceTime can be challenging. But even as we're on the floor, even rounds a day later, coming back up and saying, coming back with all right, here's my thoughts, and being able to present it as a coherent snippet, just say, this is what we did, this is how you handled it, this is my question, or this is my observation. It's a fairly quick thing, but especially taking that initiative and following up like that, definitely it's a worthwhile thing. And for most Burgundies that I've worked with, and we actually have a really good number in this room right now. Yeah, an entire back line right over here. We even if it's as we're heading out after the show, we are happy to take those couple of minutes and sit down, and especially if it is we did this and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. We will make that time. It may not be a half hour back and forth, but if you have a well formulated thought question,
right,
we'll gladly talk about that. Eric.
So, as you are somebody who people want a piece of your time, because you are John Aldefer, I'm sure you find that sometimes there are different perceptions that you might have about the people that come looking for your time. You might find that some people come looking for your time and think, oh, this person has a really earnest, concern, they're trying to work on this, or they want to communicate about this. And sometimes you might, I don't know if you find this, I find this, there are sometimes where people come to me and I think, this person just wants FaceTime. They don't have, if they have an objective, which I'm sure they do, they're not communicating it outside of, I want FaceTime. Do you have any advice for judges who earnestly want to communicate their objective, earnestly want to communicate that they're here to improve, they're not just here to get their face in front of your face and say, now you know me, do you have any advice for judges who are looking to differentiate themselves positively in that regard?
Absolutely. And like, I'll come back to kind of what I just said, and kind of tie it in, leading with your goal, leading with your aspiration, basically it's like me handling an appeal. I always tell people when you have an appeal, let me know what I'm doing, it's an appeal, and then give me the bullet points. Give me this is why I'm talking to you, this is what I need to know, this is what I'm doing. And when you're contacting me about other things, say, if it's, as you say, if it's just a, hey, now you know me type thing, I'm going, however I'm interacting with you, if it's through social media, or if it's through email or whatever, when I read through it, if I don't walk away with a strong feeling of, this is why they need to talk to me, then I'm going to be as friendly as I can across whatever media it is, but not actually be able to do much for them. Whereas if you come to me and say, this is what I want to do, this is why I need you, that's going to get me much more willing to look out and try and figure out what I can do for you.
I think Meg was first.
Yeah, Meg was over here.
I just had a note about something that I heard someone say earlier, and that's somebody who, is an Aldefer, is an person, is a person. This is building your brand. You are not Aldefer, you are not CJ, you are not Eric Levine, you're not Rob McKenzie. You are you. Because when you talk about somebody else in that fashion, you're putting an unreasonable expectation on that person to meet the standards of this person who is a titan in judging, right? And you're also assigning to them that person's faults. Because not all judges are perfect, and while these people are very good at something that they do, they also have faults and issues of their own, and you're unfairly prescribing them to that person and giving that person expectations that they need to be exactly as good as that person right now, when it took 20 years, 15 years, 10 years for that person to become that person. On top of that, we don't need another Aldefer. We don't need another Rob McKenzie. We don't need another anybody. We need a you. And you have to be you. That's what's important. It's building your brand, not building a brand that looks like the off-brand version of someone else.
Very good point. I believe Brian's with me.
So, just to add one quick thing to what was said earlier about the tips for applying, if you are if you're having somebody that you're saying, hey, this person will vouch for me or recommend me, etc., make sure to ask them first, or at least let them know. There was,
Yes.
one time CJ called me or messaged me. He was like, "Do you know this person?" I'm like, "I don't recognize them." He's like, "Okay, because apparently you recommended them." I'm like, "Oh, didn't know that. Who are they?" Like, it's just good to have that as a quick.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, if you are hoping for support from somebody, communicate it. A lot of this, truthfully, we're working in a community and we're building the reputation within the community. That needs communication. That's a fundamental part of what we do.
So we talked about how to approach someone, and you mentioned building a network, and I think I heard something at work one time. It was, networking gets has a negative connotation to it, but what networking really is building friendships, right? And I think a big part of that is being genuine with them, right? Don't go talk to them because you want them to know who you are. Go talk to them because you want to genuinely find out something from them, or you're building a relationship. You're not, don't take it so much as it's not so transactional. Right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And what we do is known as the Judge family for many reasons, but this is definitely part of it. It's about the relationships, it's about the friendships. It's you may find that a lot of judges that have been doing this for a long time, a lot of judges that are higher level at events tend to be a little aloof. They tend to kind of disappear quickly, and part of that is over decades we build up friendships and want to hang out with friends. Part of that is also you do get a lot of demands, you do get a lot of requests, and unfortunately a good number of them do tend to be kind of the transactional, let's go to dinner so I can spend the next hour or two talking to you about whatever. And if I'm passionate about something and and I'm invested in it, I'm happy to do that. But that's not something we can just jump to and short circuit immediately. So part of this is building, so much of this is building things, building your reputation, building your connections. A lot of success in this program and at these events is building yourself, and all of these are an aspect of that part. Jim?
I'm gonna go back to the gentleman here. I'm sorry I don't recognize the face and old,
Yeah.
but in my experience, you're saying it's hard to get the time and deal with, and they always look village. Stop them for a second and say, I need 10 minutes of your time, I need a half hour of your time. Be realistic. Don't say I need 5 and need a minute when you know you're gonna take an hour. I learned this one with one of our previous judge managers. He said, Jim, when I got 30 minutes for you, I'll come find you. That's what I need 10 minutes of your time. I wanted to talk about this. When you have time, I'm on the floor, and if you let your team lead know that you're expecting a visit from the Burgundy or an Aldefer, and you may disappear for 10 or 15 minutes, they'll be understanding about that. That's my best response on how to get that type of time to get your questions answered, your other things answered.
Yeah. And a part of this is I've been talking about reaching out and reaching up and making those connections. But this really only works and if not only reaching up, if you're also willing to reach down. If you are willing to help out those who are coming with you or coming up under you. That's part of, honestly, how you get really well integrated into this is, we're talking about community, build your community. A great way to establish that reputation is to have it show not through yourself, well, not just through yourself, but through those that you work with. And if you are a great resource for, let's go personal. I live in the GP kit. Part of what that meant was for years, I was the authority on everything at the GPs, all the hardware, everything, how it got packed up. Part of what that entailed was at every event, being able to work with a few judges and point things out and say, oh yeah, you need this? Here, let me show you where that is. Now they know. And so I was a resource. It wasn't a, talk to Aldefer, he'll get it for you. It was, oh, you need that? Check with Aldefer. And then once you've done that, now you're in the know. Now you're better, and therefore the events are better. And so little personal anecdote kind of relevance, just to end things up. And I'm saying that my time is up. So thank you all for your attention. And